My name is Tyler Cloward. I am the Director of Product here at Fezzari Bicycles. I'm really excited to introduce and tell a little more behind the scenes about our new Shafer gravel bike. This is a bike that I'm personally really excited about. I love gravel bikes. I've done a bunch of road cycling, a little bit of road racing here and there. Obviously a huge mountain biker as well, but the gravel bike kind of brings all of that together for me. Allows me to get out and ride straight from my house and get on some bike paths, but then there's also some great gravel riding around us. First of all, the Shafer, it's named after the Shafer Trail in Canyonlands down near Moab, Utah. That's a big, huge switchback trail that drops down to the White Rim. It's kind of an iconic view as you visit Canyonlands, or if you've been around the Moab area, it is kind of one of those iconic views. So we thought, no better way to pay homage to that of one of the great dirt roads by naming our gravel bike the Shafer. The complete package is the real reason why the new Shafer completely shines, and that's the whole recipe we came up with geometry and handling. If you've ever made anything, it's if you make a cake or something like that, it's like you can't just have one recipe or one part of the recipe shine out. You can't just have just the flour or the sugar or the frosting or things like that. And it's the same thing with how we've brought this whole package together. It's not all about the head tube angle or the fork offset or the bottom bracket drop or some other design choice that we made in the bike. It's how everything cohesively is coming together. We started on that front end of the bike of what we wanted the handling to feel like. We brought a lot of the ride qualities and some of the fitment from mountain bikes that we've learned, especially with the awards that we've won on ride quality and things like that. We wanted to add a little bit of that to the gravel bike. So we started out with the 68.9 degree head tube angle, and it's slacker than what you're seeing on a lot of some of these road bikes that are accepting wider tires, but we wanted this specifically gravel, but it's not all the way into that mountain bike realm. With that, it allows that front end to stay stable as the roads get rough and things get, maybe you're on gravel road or getting into a little single track, you still have that front end stability. But we also wanted to address with that slacker head tube angle, how do we keep the slow speed turning quick? And that was with our fork offset. We're running a larger offset at 50 millimeters on the fork. And that was a design decision that we made in order to keep that trail number. It's really technical, with some of that terminology. It's basically that contact patch of that tire, where that's sitting under that wheel. So by changing that fork offset combined with that head tube angle, we're allowing the riders to feel more stability, front end stability, steering stability, at speed, but also keep slow speed turning. So if this is your bike, your gravel bike, and it's like, hey, I want to jump in my fun weekly series cyclocross race, go ahead. This bike will be able to handle that with that slow speed turning. As we move back to the bike on geometry, we get to bottom bracket drop. The vertical distance the bottom bracket sits below the axles. And we're running a larger drop than what you're gonna see on a road bike. We're at 77 millimeters. And we came up with that because we wanted to lower that center of gravity. This bike isn't probably not gonna be racing a crit race. So we were able to go a little bit lower to help bring that center of gravity down to offer stability. Out back we have the chain stays at 430 millimeters, where typical road bikes we're seeing those at 410. So we're about an inch longer, not quite an inch longer. And that just really helps stability over the washboard. There's so many gravel events or rides that are getting back on these backcountry roads that have washboards in them. And so having that little bit longer wheelbase, especially that 430 millimeter behind the bottom bracket, that allows things to stay more stable. So that's really the mix of the stability and handling on that bike. The other thing that we did a little bit different is we lengthened our top tubes, and this is taken from the mountain bike world. So this bike, you're roughly, about an inch longer than what you would typically see on a comparable road bike, for instance. And that's because we still want to maintain that reach, but we're designing these to be used with shorter stems. That's a design choice that we made, taken from the mountain bike world. So when you're riding that bike, instead of having a long stem, if we're trying to make a corner, that thing's gonna it takes a lot of rider input to get that wheel to turn, especially at slow speeds. And so by increasing the top tube, shortening the stem, that handling moves just a little bit quicker, but you still have the stability of the wheelbase with the longer top tube. So we wanted stability in the front with the head tube, but steering with the offset of the fork, lower center of gravity, again, stability with the bottom bracket, a bike that is able to take the chunk, and that's where the chainstay comes in along with the top tube configuration. So it's like that whole recipe coming together. It's not about just one number. It is the entire bike coming together as a whole that really creates that ride quality and that stability all the way through. As we started going into the Shafer and how we were going to build this bike, we again bring back our monoform technology. And this is something that we've worked on for quite a few years. You're seeing it in some of our other models, like the Empire road bike. You're seeing a Solitude mountain bike. There's another upcoming bike that's going to have that technology as well. And what this basically allows us to do is we're curing the entire frame at one time. It's like, oh, what's so great about that? I thought all frames were cured at one time. Traditionally, most bikes are, and this is road bikes, drop bar bikes, hardtails typically, is you have a front triangle mold, the head tube, top tube, down tube, seat tube, and that's all molded at one time. And then you have a rear triangle mold, your seat stays and your chain stays and your rear dropout. Those are molded and cured. They're not joined yet. After that curing process takes place, in the traditional way of doing things, they're machined and they're bonded together, they're aligned. This simplifies some of the molding process. It cuts down on some of the machinery that needs to be done, needed to be used to be able to mold some bikes. But it also simplifies the actual compaction process as you get into carbon fiber. The trick with molding carbon fiber is it's all about heat and compaction. It's how close can you bring those bonded pre-preg layers together to work out. That's the biggest thing when we're curing a bike. If you hear about voids or things like that, it's really just the layers are not coming together. And so it's that mold design of bringing things together. And that's why bikes have been done traditionally, a front triangle, rear triangle, then after the fact, they're bonded together to make a complete system. We have figured out a way to mold the entire frame at one time. And why is that so significant? In the traditional way, you have the front triangle, rear triangle, but as those are bonded together, that creates like a lug. And so what you're trying to do, if you're trying to tune carbon fiber works really well in long strands. If you cut it, that kind of acts like a joint. Kind of think of like a PVC pipe, for instance. If you were to bend a PVC pipe, you can get that perfect curve to it every single time. But if you were to put a junction in between, you're limited by what that PVC can do by that junction. That's essentially what's happening in traditional curing methods. But because we cure that bike as one piece from head tube to rear dropout all at the same time, we have more control over what's happening through the chain stays and seat stays where you would typically find that joint. And so that's the real trick with monoform. It's also allowing us to reduce a little bit of weight because we don't have that machining. It allows us to build a stronger frame again because we can manipulate the carbon fiber a little bit better. It also cuts out manufacturing steps. The bikes come out perfectly aligned every single time. Paint cracks are typically common at that bonding joint. In the past, we don't have that anymore because there's no joint. So our monoform technology really changes the ride characteristics of a bike. We can make it more comfortable. We can make more power transfer. We can reduce weights because we don't have that lug in there. And overall, it's just making a better product. And the new Shafer features that monoform technology. As we got through the design, we got the geometry done and how we were going to build this bike. We really wanted to make sure this is a bike that had all of the features that the modern gravel rider would want. Whether you're hopping in a new race, you're full out, basically a dirt roadie, you want that race suffer bike, this bike will do it. Or you want to be on that multi-day adventure packing, this is a bike that can do it as well. So some of those frame features we wanted to put into the bike. First of all, it's suspension fork compatible. There's a lot of new suspension forks on the market, 30, 40 millimeters of travel. We specifically designed this bike with those in mind. If someone wanted to add those, the bike is ready to go. It's compatible to run the suspension forks. If you look over the bike, you'll notice there are enormous amounts of bottle mounts on here, whether it's bottles or bags or whatever you're doing for your bike packing adventure. We want to make sure all those little features were in there. It's 1x and 2x compatible. If you notice, most of our complete bikes are 1x systems. However, if you're looking at grabbing a frame set, 2x systems are available. The bike is compatible with mechanical, electronic drivetrains. All of that's ready to go. Seat tube, we're a 27.2 seat tube diameter, so there's new trend of dropper poster available in 27.2. That also allows us to have a little more flex. If you also notice, we have that sloping top tube. That is purposely designed so there's more seat post showing to get that thing to flex just a little bit more for a little bit more added comfort. Those are just a few of the design features. Tire clearance, 700 by 50C, so tire clearance is huge on this bike. We wanted that on purpose to make sure the riders have choice. As things get rough, they can get really wide tires, or if someone's like, I want to be in between, or even use it as a road bike, hop in a group ride, put some slicks on. That's something that you can do. English thread bottom brackets. We have a design language here. If the bike's going to see dirt, it gets an English thread bottom bracket. So English thread bottom brackets, easy serviceability, and then typical things you would see, flat mount disc brakes, through axles, are kind of fit out the frame features on the new Shafer bike. You'll also notice that the head tube, inch and a half oversized head tubes. Again, that allows for stiffness, but if you notice, all of our cables are internal. We've been able to hide all the cables, but still maintain everything. If you buy a bike from Fezzari, we go through our 23-point custom setup. We fully assemble and tune every single bike, and that internal cable routing, that comes to you completely ran. All the cables are working, the brakes are functioning, but they're still hidden in the frame. We figured out a way to assemble those and hide those cables, but still make it extremely easy for you once you get your new bike. One of the other things you'll notice is our integrated seat clamp. What's cool about that is not only, is it clean looking, but what's unique about that one is it's become near impossible to actually break a seat post by over tightening it. Because there's so much surface area pushing against that seat post, crank down on that thing. In the past they had the typical round seat clamps that if you over tighten them or things like that, it would actually break the seat post. But with this integrated clamp, we've made it super tall and oversized that it's almost impossible to crush the seat post. And it's a little feature, but that is the biggest thing that as we go through and we think through these bikes, we try and think about every possibility and every scenario that these bikes are going to be used in, and then design a better solution. That's one thing that we constantly talk about as we're working with our design teams and product teams to figure out, okay, what are the pain points, and how do we make these better? And that seat post clamp is just one of the small areas. Through the whole design process, how we've really come up with that geometry, the carbon layup, and then incorporated all those features. The last thing that really sets the new Shafer kind of above and beyond really is what makes Fezzari so special, and that's custom quality direct. Through our 23-point custom setup that I mentioned a little bit earlier, we fit the bike to each individual rider. So for instance, if you're 5'10" and have a 31-inch inseam, the next rider is 5'10", have a 35-inch inseam, and they're going to need a different stem length or crank length or bar width or something like that to fit their proportions to their body size. Instead of taking that medium or large size frame and just taking, here's what comes on the bike, what a product manager spec'd on a bike, we actually fit the bike through you. And that's where that 23-point custom setup comes in, and getting all of those measurements. We're actually using that to make sure the bike is perfect. And that's part of the customization process. Along with that is really the quality. That's one thing we stress and we talk about more in our internal meetings than almost anything else, is the quality of our product, the quality of our service all the way through. With the Shafer, we went and tested this thing to super high standards. We added different rear end pack testings, really that was kind of borderline of what you'd see on a cross-country mountain bike. And we did that because we know riders are going to ride these hard, and we want to be able to back this with a lifetime warranty. And it's because of that actual machine testing that we're able to offer that lifetime warranty. But beyond that, we did a whole bunch of ride testing on this bike as well. This bike has been on the podium at a 185-mile gravel race, the Colorado to Utah race. It's seen a huge 600-700 mile bike packing trip all the way through Iceland, and a countless of other miles to really see what this bike can do, and it's going to hold up to the real rider. Not only the actual, did we hit the design of the bike right, but all the fit and finish features, the paint, the decals. We wanted to make sure this bike was absolutely perfect, and that's really the quality standpoint and really the service that's coming with that. And then us as a direct-to-rider company, we're working directly with riders, and so you're going to find these, from Fezzari.com. You can either visit there or call us. And with that, not only are you going to get a personalized service with the team that's working with and on the bikes, it's also going to save you a bunch of money just with that direct-to-rider model. And that's really what sets Fezzari apart, is that custom quality direct. And you can see more about the new Shafer gravel bike on Fezzari.com.